Morning, it's W6WUH Larry in California. Today we're going to do a side-by-side comparison of a couple of rare Clegg receivers, the Interceptor B and the earlier Interceptor receiver. These are both essentially single sideband receivers for 6 and 2 meters. Very well engineered, very high quality, essentially Collins level of quality and engineering. So we'll look at the differences between the two, and we'll look at their capabilities. And because I have the original documentation here, we'll take a look at that in more detail than we would with most radios, because these are rare, in my opinion, seldom seen, and there's not much very good information about them. If you want to see the Interceptor B in operation on YouTube, Noir Film Radio made a very nice posting a number of years ago showing the receiver in operation with the All Bander HF converter. We'll go into that later. Suffice it to say that this essentially is a high stability single sideband 6 meter receiver with a crystal filter, and internally it has a 2 meter New Vista converter for the 2 meter band, and it has inputs on the back which allow you to use other converters, 220 or 440 or 1296 or whatever you happen to have, and also to use the Clegg designed HF converter, which up converts to 6 meters. And I've discussed that elsewhere, talking about 6 meter AM, but anyway, we'll talk about the All Bander converter later. The basic difference between these two receivers, let's start with the first one. This is the original Interceptor receiver, designed in 1961 and first sold about February of 1962. This receiver has a Q multiplier, and it has an adjustable audio filter, a sharp audio filter, and those things were designed to improve its ability to work as a CW receiver. Q multiplier gives you more gain, more selectivity, and the active audio filters let you tailor the audio selectivity. It has an automatic noise limiter, which in the case of this original Interceptor is an off-on diode type noise limiter. Definitely was designed as a sideband receiver. It has an AM detector as well, and it has about 8 kc selectivity for AM, and for upper and lower sideband and CW it uses a 3.5 kc wide crystal filter in the IF. Controls are quite simple. RF gain control. This selects external converters if you're using them, and also selects it to 6 and 2 meters. This receiver is a 4-band receiver, so the dial reads across 1 megacycle wide on each band, so 6 meters is 4 megacycles wide, so it's in 4 bands, and so is 2 meters. Okay, the Interceptor Bravo was designed in 1962 or 3 and came on the market in 1964. and it differs in several ways from the original Interceptor receiver. It does not have a Q multiplier, and it does not have the selectable audio filter. But what it does let you do is switch the crystal filter in and out. I don't believe that the original Interceptor does not let you switch the crystal filter out. So I think the selectivity is always at the 3-point KC. But with this one, you can take the crystal filter out of the circuit for AM use or maybe for net use, and for sideband and CW in the sharp mode, that puts the crystal filter in the IF, and it has for sideband and CW, it has an adjustable noise limiter, and for AM it has a peak noise limiter. Other than that, the controls. And this also adds a receive vernier control for single sideband use, so that you can fine-tune the signal without using the larger geared dial. Let's look at the, let's stop here for a second. Here's the poop sheet on the original Interceptor receiver, and you go down to the bottom and you say, will be available, and they scratched it down and added February 1962. So they had approved the drawing in 1961, but it took a year for them to get the radio into production. Here's the price in 1962 dollars, $440. A new Volkswagen at that point, or a new Chevy, was about $1,800. So this is on the level of a price of a Collins 75 S1 receiver, which I think was $495 if I'm not mistaken. So here you go. Here's what they're telling you. Virtually no cross modulation. This receiver has 120 dB of dynamic range, which only the highest end transceivers today can duplicate. Noise figure less than 2 dB with the new Vista front end and IF. That was very good for 1962, and of course if you put a gas FET a preamp in front of this thing, that will set the noise figure. The stability is very high, and less than a 1/4 microvolt sensitivity. Let's compare that to a Collins 75 S1, where the rated sensitivity was 1 microvolt. So this is 4 times more sensitive than your Collins S1 receiver. It's got a lower noise figure, and it's just about as stable. So you were really getting something for your money in 1962 when you bought this thing. They're talking about the Q multiplier and the crystal lattice filter. Provision for other converters. It has some interesting features. It's got internal provisions for a pan adapter monitor scope. It's got a jack on the back, and you can just plug it right in. So that was the original Interceptor for 1962. This was just simply the best off-the-shelf VHF receiver that you could buy, and arguably as a tabletop receiver that doesn't actually have an LMO, this is a pretty doggone modern receiver. This is one of the most modern tube type receivers that anybody ever designed. There's a few Drakes that came out later that are newer, but in this kind of design, this is just about as good as it got. Except that in that period from between 1962 and 1963, Clegg Laboratories was acquired by Squire Sanders, and Squire Sanders did a little upgrade on this receiver, and they added the vernier tuning. They added the ability to switch the crystal filter in and out. They got rid of the Q multiplier and the audio filter, thinking that they were unnecessary, and I'm sure they probably were. And they did change the tube lineup slightly. The basic architecture is the same. Let's take a look now at that receiver architecture. I'll get out this big schematic. We'll see how these work, and you'll see why I'm calling them basically single sideband receivers with AM capability rather than the other way around. They have all of the features of a modern single sideband receiver. We'll look at that. Well, here's my shop copy of the big original schematic for the Interceptor receiver, and I think we'll look at the block diagram I drew out just for a moment, just to look at the basic architecture of this most easily. One of the things that makes this thing so similar to any modern sideband receiver is how they do the HF oscillator. They're using a 7360 balanced mixer tube, which is about the best you can get. They got a crystal controlled high frequency oscillator and a high stability VFO running at about 9 megacycles, and those two things run into the balanced mixer, and they end up giving an approximate 40 megacycle injection frequency. So you've got your New Vista RF amplifier running at 6 meters at 50 megacycles. You mix this VFO and high frequency oscillator combination, which is a variable signal around 40 megacycles. You mix it here and you get your first IF at 10.7 megacycles, real standard, and that runs through one stage of IF, and then it goes through the crystal filter or around the crystal filter. No, pardon me, I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess so. In this one, the other one, this must be for the Interceptor B. I'm not sure. I know that the crystal filter in the Interceptor is at 455 kc. So this might be wrong. We'll take a look and see. Anyway, got another crystal controlled oscillator, and you go down to 456 kcif. You go down here a couple of stages of IF, and you've got a crystal controlled upper and lower sideband injection oscillator and a mixer. So you've got crystal controlled BFO, switch selectable for upper and lower sideband, just like any, this is basically the Collins system, and just like any modern single sideband receiver has. And it's got a product detector, and it's also got an AM detector for AM. But this was designed as a sideband receiver, top to bottom, and the AM is really just icing on the cake. So here's Then that's this. Yeah, this is the old one. It shows the Q multiplier and all that kind of stuff. So here we look at the schematic. New Vista RF amplifier. Let's see. That's the 2 meter section. 6 meter. New Vista RF amplifier. 6BL8 10.7 mixer. Half of that tube. Use the HF oscillator, the 7360 balance mixer, the VFO, all coming up here. Going into the 10.7 first IF mixer. 10.7 megacycle filter, so it does have a crystal filter at 10.7 megs. Another injection oscillator, crystal controlled. A couple of stages of IF at 456. AM detector is half of a triode, or it's a diode, I guess. Product detector 6BE6. Here's your crystal controlled BFO, upper and lower sideband injection oscillators. And you come down here, audio amplifier. So, pretty straightforward. So that's the basic architecture, and it's really not any different than any other sideband receiver, except that it's operating at 6 meters. And as I've said in other videos, if you look at what a modern HF transceiver does, they're all up converting to 6 meter IF. They got an IF about 60 megacycles instead of 50, because this gets rid of a lot of images, cross modulation, birdies, all kinds of crap goes away when you do that. So here was Clegg Labs doing that with their HF All Bander converter, up converting to 6 meters almost 60 years ago, 59 years ago this thing was designed. So okay, let's I think maybe we'll open these up and take a look at what's inside. This is an anti-backlash flywheel geared mechanism. There's no backlash in this thing at all. It's split gears with springs. Flywheel, it's just as smooth as a duck's ass, and this is a real joy if you've ever tuned, like, say, an NC300 or something else with a nice anti-backlash flywheel tuning. You know what this feels like. Well, these old documents and ads are kind of fun, so I thought I'd show you this just to get an idea of what happened between when this receiver first came out from Clegg Labs and when it was taken over by Squire Sander. Let's just compare the manual. Here's the original manual from Clegg Laboratories in Tabor, New Jersey, for the original Interceptor receiver. You can see that this is mimeographed. The language is very, very similar to the later manual, but you can see that it's mimeographed. Here they've written in the serial number for the receiver by hand, and look at the general specs are given in here, and they change a little bit, which is interesting, between the Interceptor and the Interceptor B. And I don't know if that is because they actually improved the receiver, or because they found out that the thing was even better than they realized. I don't know which. Well, I can't find it. But at any rate, on this original Interceptor receiver, they said that within 15 minutes of warm-up, it would be the drift would be less than 150 cycles per hour. And with this one, they say that after 15 minutes, the drift will be less than 100 cycles per hour, which is, you know, this is Collins' level of stability. And in fact, when you listen to a single sideband, you can set this thing and listen to it for hours, and it's not going to wander around and cause you to retune it. The dynamic range, I think, stayed the same. The image rejection and IF rejection stayed the same at about 90 dB and 120 dB of dynamic range, and the sensitivity stayed the same at maybe they got to let me see. Okay, things that changed is the broad selectivity is 6 kc. I think it was rated 8 kc in the Interceptor, but the sensitivity has gone from a quarter microvolt to a 1/10 microvolt. So that's a considerable improvement. Less than 5% cross modulation between 1/1,000,000th of a volt and 25 thousandths of a volt, 250 times more. Dynamic range greater than 120 dB, and it really is. On the East Coast, the Gretzky, who's now a silent key, was running an AM repeater. He had a transmitter right next to the receiver with no duplexers. I think maybe running 20 kc away or so, and not hurting the receiver at all. I was just running full duplex AM with only 20 kc of channel separation. This receiver is not folding over. I just defy you to try to do this with some modern solid state thing. It ain't gonna do it. Okay, because this is a comparison to help you identify models, I'm going to just show you what I have. This is the only early Interceptor receiver that I have or I've ever seen. It has a green kind of light crinkle finish on the cabinet, and I'm presuming that this is original, but I haven't ever seen another one. I couldn't tell you for sure, but I believe it's original. I have two Interceptor Bs, and they both have a smooth, light, slightly hammer-toned gray enamel finish. So other than that, both of them have these very high-quality, white enameled panels with painted lettering. Maybe it was silk screen, but you can actually feel this paint. It's so thick for all of the lettering. And the dials, as far as I can tell, are identical. This one has the automatic noise limiter switch, the early version, and the B version has vernier tuning plus or minus 1 kc. The early version, as I said, has Q multiplier and adjustable audio filter, and the B version has an adjustable selectivity filter, basically crystal filter in and out, and an adjustable noise limiter. So other than that, they're different. The Interceptor B says Interceptor B right on it, and the other one just says Interceptor on the dial. They both say Interceptor on the dial. We'll turn them around and look at the back. Okay, here we've got the rear of the two receivers, the Interceptor B on the left with the green tag, and the original Interceptor on the right with the black tag. There's not too much difference, but in order to clarify what some of this stuff is for, I brought out my HF All Bander converter. I'm not going to get into this very deeply, except to say that this up converts to 6 meters and is made to plug right into either of the Interceptors. The All Bander came out at the same time that the Interceptor B did, about 1964. It works with either receiver, but its design was concurrent with the Interceptor B. So let's look back here on the bottom panel. Let's just look at the labels here. So here you got the Clegg Laboratories Division of Transistor Devices. Well, I didn't know that. And here's my serial number on this one. Oops. Guess I'll have to. Well, we'll read it later. I can't do that. So here's the Interceptor B with the green label, and it says Clegg Laboratories, Division of Squire Sanders Incorporated. Whatever that says, someplace in New Jersey. I guess it's Mount Tabor. Anyway, on the back of the, I've got to look in the manual to see what this connector is for. I can't remember what it's for, and it doesn't have anything to do with the All Bander, and it does not exist on the back of the Interceptor B. So I can't remember what that jack is for. This is the accessory jack, and clearly the All Bander plugs in there and gets its power from that accessory jack. S-meter adjust is self-explanatory. These two little labels here, 2-meter antenna, 6-meter antenna, and converter, are labels for these jacks up here. So the All Bander converter plugs into that RCA plug, and your 6 and 2 meter receiver antennas plug into those jacks. So they've just put the labels down here on the skirt. There's 10.7 meg IF output. That's for your pan adapter scope or some other thing should you want it. If you wanted an FM detector, I guess that's where you'd put it. Here's the Interceptor B. It's missing this big kludge plug. I can't remember what the purpose is. They both got a speaker jack, an accessory jack, S-meter adjustment, and 10.7 meg IF, and they both got these little indicators to tell you what those are for. So there you go. My camera's just about, I've got to run it on the plug. But there's the serial number for the thing 612, and that probably means, it couldn't be 62 because it didn't come out till 64. I don't know how to decode that. So that says Mount Tabor. That says Mount Tabor. So apparently the factory stayed in the same place and the management or the ownership changed. Okay, I think we beat this horse as much as we can. I think I'll take the cover off of the early one and we'll look inside there. Well, I'm looking at the inside of the case of the original Interceptor, and you can see that there is a gray light hammer tone paint on the underside of the lip that went over the front of this receiver, and you can see the line along the side. So I believe that the original color of this original Interceptor was the same as the Interceptor B here that it's sitting on top of. I think you can see those are the same color. So I think somebody had painted this receiver that sort of crinkle green, and that was not original. Unfortunately, I got to change the cord here on this camera. Just in case you don't know, there is a matching two-piece transmitter that goes along with the Interceptor B, and that's the Clegg Zuess transmitter. And I say two parts because it has a separate power supply modulator. The RF deck here is all self-contained low-level audio VFO and the whole transmitter, and it's got a power supply and a modulator with an umbilical cord, which is a separate unit. This is a 4x150 tube modulated by a pair of 811As. It's a CW and AM transmitter. which, you know, in most people's minds makes it obsolete. But like all the old AM transmitters, it was very easy to pipe in a couple of watts of CW drive to the driver stage, change the bias voltage a little bit so that the final ran as a linear amplifier, and use it as a sideband transmitter. Now, I haven't modified this one, but it would be extremely easy to do, and I think it can be done without drilling any holes. So anyway, that's the mate to these receivers.